Welcome, everyone. Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles. This is one of our regular gathering with our paid subscribers. Thank you all for those of you who've paid to keep this place going. Your money allows this site and this community to exist. And so thank you all so much for your support of this plucky endeavor. Look, we're gathering in dark times. This is a hard time for the country and for all of us, not a Democrat-Republican thing, an American versus uh, illiberalism and authoritarianism thing. And I'm going to try, I don't have totally scripted sets of remarks. I always speak impromptu in all of these gatherings, but I'm usually a little bit more have thought through what I'm going to say than I do tonight. I'm going to speak for 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll take questions. I know there are going to be a lot of questions, as there should be. And I'm going to talk about four things tonight. I'm going to talk about Trump, Musk, us, Democrats, and hopium. So let's go. Trump, he's still the same guy. We have to remind ourselves and ground ourselves in this every day. He's still the same guy who was a 34 times felon, an impulsive, diminished extremist, who, because of his impulsivity, is prone to make mistakes in the game. Let me just fix this. And is people are putting other terms to use about Trump, but his self-confidence and this sense of that he has a mandate is something that I think is also causing him to be sloppy and to make mistakes. His statement about seizing Gaza last night in his press conference was reckless and stupid and idiotic. The term, as many of you may remember, that I used a lot during the election for some of the old timers here, is I use the term idiot and idiotic to describe him, which I think is a word that we have to hang on to. And we can't, we have to be, as I've talked about, every day we have to get up and pull the curtain back from the wizard and go through that psychological journey of not seeing him as Oz and big and powerful, but as pulling the curtain back and seeing the old man with all the things, all the levers that he's pulling. This is a psychological thing that we have to do at least once a day and perhaps many times, because the show and the game, the Oz, is the whole thing, right? It's the whole thing with Trump. It's all about him being a strong man as opposed to being a weak man, and like what I called him during the campaign, a big blubbery baby man. And I think we can't let go of that. And I think they have come out of the box roaring. They're making mistakes. I think they've overread their mandate, and they are, I think, been, as I've said in the last time we got together, which was right after he became president 2 weeks ago, I have been surprised with how sloppy and reckless that they have been. Yes, they were. Yes, they had a plan. Yes, they're executing on it, but man, are they not executing on this plan well, in my view, and are making a lot of mistakes. Their overreach, for example, one of the very first things that they did is they dismantled the management of aviation security in America, and terrorized the employees at air traffic controllers and virtually all other employees in the United States. And we had a plane went down, this accident that happened last week. The idea that he can't be held responsible for this, in my view, is absurd. I mean, when you take an organization that's already wildly understaffed, dealing with unbelievably complicated stuff, very difficult airspace, the Pentagon, everything else, and then you shake that thing up and you try to purposefully break it, and then it breaks, you can't claim that, oops, that I didn't do that, right? It's the same thing that's happening, unfolding around the world. I mean, millions of people could die in the next few weeks because of Trump and Musk and Marco Rubio cutting off USAID food and medicine to the poorest and most desperate people in the world. And again, that's going to be one of those circumstances where we have to be vigilant about assigning and maintaining the responsibility they have for all the things that they're breaking, because they are trying to break a lot of things all, very rapidly. And so for Trump, I think that we have to recognize that, he is attempting to become an American dictator, and that they're pushing it with everything they got. And we're seeing the courts are holding, right? The Senate isn't necessarily, the Senate Republicans are rolling over. But we cannot, I think psychologically, what's so important as we go forward is that we can't give them wins before they happen. We can't obey in advance. We can't say, well, there's no reason to do anything because he's just going to get out of it. We don't know anything. I think that's perhaps the most important thing that I want to say tonight to all of you, which is we have no idea what's going to happen. And this idea that there is some kind of clear path that they're going down, that Donald Trump is got a 10-day plan as opposed to getting up in the morning and everything is new for everyone there every day, and he's mistake prone, right? Because he's old and an idiot and he's impulsive and he's overconfident. That we cannot assume that things are won't will fail that we try. Because I think one of the things that I've learned from people who've been through this in other countries and been through these kinds of experiences is that we have to defend the rules and norms and laws of the nation as if they are still there, or we will be ceding democratic ground to them and obeying in advance. And so, for example, I wrote yesterday about how the congressional Democrats should be making a criminal referral of Elon Musk and all of his posse because they are breaking, tons of laws every day. It's just extraordinary the crime spree they're on. And some of the comments in the chat at Hopium were, "What's the point? I mean, DOJ won't act upon it." Well, if we don't defend what should be happening, then we're contributing to the erosion of our democracy. And that's why there are going to be things that we do from time to time that are going to feel like, of course, that's not going to work. But if we don't do it, then we're actually contributing to the erosion of democracy. And I think these are the kinds of things that our elected officials are going to have to learn, because Democrats historically are strong on governing and legislating and weak on the performance aspect of the job. I mean, one of the reasons that Clinton and Obama were so exceptional is that, they were incredible orators and they had a gift for politics, right? And reaching people and touching people. It is in our system, the way that we kind of move people up the food chain, we're not always rewarding people for that kind of that political deftness and that touch. It's why people like AOC and Chris Murphy and Jasmine Crockett are breaking through right now, because they're politically gifted, right? They have that thing. I remember there was an old Betty Davis movie. There was an interview with Betty Davis once where the interviewer said to her, and I'm probably conflating a bunch of things, but an interviewer said to her, you look so normal when I'm with you, but on the screen, like you stand out. And she said, well, that's why they call it the big screen, bucko. And what it means is that there are people that can break through. Trump can do that. Elon can do that, right? And I think that what we have to recognize is that we have to get up every day and imagine that we're still living in the America of the four freedoms, rules-based system, a democracy, right, that respects the American creed, and not get up every day, as we have been talking about here from the very first day of Hopium, and starting from their place. We have to start from our place, right? Our truth, our understanding, and not allow them to dictate our understandings and what should be happening in the United States. So for Trump, I think, he is wild. He's doing a million things. The reason why some of these things that he's doing don't hurt him, because he has no shame. He has no, and that they are so constantly turning over the media cycle, the media news cycle, that we just move on to the next thing, and mistakes that he makes, like the firing of the January 6th, I mean, the release of the January 6th prisoners, which were seen, by the American public, were horrified. We just move on. There's been 27 things since that happened 2 weeks ago. And that's part of his strategy, right? Which is to flood the zone, confuse us, keep moving, as I have been writing, it's they, move fast and break things, right? And I will say that what's important, everybody, two things I want to report. One is that his approval rating is coming down. And this is really important because this is one of those things that we can't say, well, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. There are a lot of people, we're going to have elections in 2026, and the Republicans have the smallest majority in American history in the House. They can't afford, and they're going to be senators and thousands of Republicans running with Trump in 2026. And if his approval rating's in the crapper, it's going to weaken him with the rest of the party. Donald Trump begins his presidency 20 to 30 points lower in job approval than is typical of a recent president in modern times. He's 20 points lower today than Joe Biden was in his first month, and Biden was low. Usually, in recent times, Democrats and Republicans have this honeymoon period where they're at plus 25, 30, 40 in job approval, right? Net. Trump today is at plus one, plus two. So he's already historically in an unbelievably weakened position. The second thing is in the two weekly tracks that I follow, the Morning Consult track that comes out on Mondays and the Economist YouGov that comes out on Wednesdays, which poll every week, right? His job approval was plus eight in the Morning Consult poll a week ago. It was plus two this week. Economist YouGov came out today. It was plus four. It's plus one. So he's dropped 3 points and 6 points in those two polls in the last week. That is big movement, folks. Polls usually move a point at a time when you're dealing with somebody as well known as Trump. So he's fading now. Civics, which is a poll that I'm going to start using much more, which is a Democratic polling firm that polls every night, has him -3 in job approval rating. If he starts getting into the low 40s in the next few weeks, it is going to weaken his hold on the Republican Party, and stories will start to be written about his unpopularity. Elon Musk may not care about being unpopular. Donald Trump does. And Donald Trump does not want to be unpopular. He wants to be liked. He likes to be revered, right? And so I think we have to recognize the work that we're doing and is working. The second thing is I saw a tweet tonight from the senator from Alaska. I'm just spacing on her name, who said that the call volume coming into the Senate is 40 times the normal call volume and that the system is overloaded. So congratulations, everybody, right? They are acknowledging and hearing. They are aware the public is engaged in what's happening. I think a large majority of those calls are coming from us and our side. And, the Hopium community has been doing their part. They're hearing, folks, right? It may not result in us beating the unacceptable four in the next week to 10 days, but they are aware that the public is engaged and paying attention. And it's really important. And I will say that we'll come back to, well, let's do it now. I'm going to do it now. In terms of what do we do? Because that's what is on everybody's mind so much. Um, I think you have to be prudent and strategic and smart and not rush into battle. I mean, this is what I have been saying about my stance with Hopium over the last few months is that things are so uncertain and so unsettled that it would be a mistake, I think, to rush into battle. I have now three sets of things we're working on, right? Abigail Spanberger's race, giving money to the DNC to get them Ken Martin off to a good start. And we just added the Wisconsin Supreme Court race this week. And we're also doing a lot of work with calls and contacting our elected officials all across the country, up and down the ballot, to give them ideas, to set expectations about what we think they should be doing for us. And what you're doing is you're doing this as a citizen. You're calling your representatives and saying, here's what I expect you to do. And by you doing that, you're giving them ideas. You're teaching them about how to become not just legislators and elected officials, but communicators, leaders of the opposition, right? And we have to together forge this new opposition. And part of what you're doing with these calls that many of you have been doing is you're helping your electeds understand what you expect out of them now, which is why for those of you who have time You should be calling every single elected representative you have at every level of government and telling them what you expect out of them now, that you expect them to become leaders of the opposition, that you expect them to be fighting Trump. You expect them in the state legislature to be passing condemnations of what Trump is doing and denouncing him the way that the Congress will often denounce foreign governments that they don't like. We must use the condemnation and things like criminal referrals. These things become really important in these moments where people are going on the record expressing their displeasure in a formal way of governments to another government, not just a political party or a politician. But we are not powerless. We just have to learn how to use the power that we have differently. And we have to be operating, as I've called here, 24/7, 365. I've been writing a lot, and Ken Martin is a friend, and I'll be meeting with his team soon. I'm giving them a little space. But I've been writing a lot about how we have to help Ken Martin at the DNC and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries build this ferocious and effective opposition. We have to pull together the all the grassroots groups around the country that have done such incredibly important work. The new pro-democracy media like Midas Touch and Courier Newsroom, Resolute Square, and all the Substacks that are out there. The traditional Democratic Party apparatus and our traditional allies, and also tens of thousands of elected officials all across the country. We have enormous assets that we have to organize differently for a new purpose, which is to create the most ferocious and effective opposition in American history. And we have to recognize that it's part of our job to go build that. I want the Hopium community to see yourselves as leaders in constructing this new opposition. We have no idea how to do it. We don't know who the leaders are going to be. And people need, I just want to give a little bit of advice, right? People have to stop crapping on Democrats and being perpetually disappointed. It's self indulgent and a waste of time. It's become performative in the family. Of course, we're worried. Of course, we're frustrated. Of course, we are not where we want to be. We all understand that. But using the time that you have to communicate to other Democrats your persistent displeasure and frustration about Democrats, as opposed to the fucking dictator who's trying to take over the country and his buddy Elon Musk, is self indulgent. It's not, we have to move beyond it. You can feel it, you can express it to your friends, but when you engage in public settings, it's not what you should be doing. You should be talking about the work you're doing and helping inform people about the threat that Trump represents. That's the most important work you can do in the information space and in our collective community. And I know that we get every day at Hopium dozens and dozens like, Simon, where are the leaders? Where are the leaders? Right. And then what happens is that that becomes, you're in essence obeying in advance by doing that, right? Because you are arguing that we are weak rather than strong, or that we are stumbling but we're standing up, right? Whatever it is. We got out of the box late and weak here, no question. But we got to move beyond that. We got to go and we got to do and we got to go make this next thing happen, right? And then finally, on the doing thing, I've been writing about this. Be careful about the rallies and the protests. You should not attend in with your own body in public a rally or protest unless you know the organization and trust them. And I'm going to be talking much more about this in the coming weeks. What the Republicans want is they want conflict. They want, and we know that they hijacked rallies, that there were false flag operations during in 2020, during the George Floyd protests. We know there were foreign governments and malevolent actors in the protests that happened on college campuses last year. And what they want is they want the perception that this unruly radical left is breaking laws and that they're going to have to crack down. And all I'm saying is, I'm not telling you not to go out. I'm not telling you not to show up. But I am seeing rallies being organized, and there is no sponsor of the organization on the bottom flowing across, even being promoted by people that I respect and admire. We can't do that, guys. It's a recipe for disaster for us. You have to know who the organization is, who the sponsor of the organization is, and you have to trust them before to put yourself in harm's way, because some of these rallies and protests are going to lead to mass arrests. There are markdowns. And remember, and we can't be naive about this, if the police are there, FBI are there, you're going to leave a digital signature with your phone that you were there physically. And this is how we got a lot of the January 6th people. And so don't believe that you're anonymous by showing up at these things. You're leaving a digital, signature that you were there in case at some point, right, these rallies become determined to be illegal or whatever else. Be careful. Everything you do now should be purposeful, strategic, measured, thoughtful, serious. We cannot respond to his impulsivity with our own, right? And we have to be careful, in my view, going forward. Elon, I'm just going to do these really quick now. Elon, because I covered us a little bit. Look, I think that my own view that Trump and Elon, where they overlap, because they are not the same, they don't have the same objectives. They're coming at this with different aspirations and goals. Is that I wrote about this today on Twitter, I mean on Blue Sky, which is what really may be happening with Elon Musk right now is that his government, the Afrikaner government in South Africa, with Peter Thiel and David Sachs, the other South Africans, uh, came from. Elon Musk's family moved from Canada to go be part of the apartheid regime because his family has a multi-generational commitment to fascism, right? They were politically active fascists who went to South Africa to support apartheid. And Elon Musk's government was overthrown by, in essence, the West, by USAID, by the United States, by the America, the Four Freedoms in the West, as was the Soviet Union. And I think that what we have to recognize is that Elon Musk now, in my view, is in a partnership with Vladimir Putin to start to rip apart and tear apart the elements of the West and of the United States that were responsible for overturning and the rancid regimes, the Soviet regime and the Afrikaner apartheid regime. And that it is amazing that the generosity of this country, that we were willing to take in refugees from a government and a country that had been overturned because we don't have ideological litmus tests here in the United States for immigrants, or at least we didn't used to. We'll see what happens. Um, and and that Elon Musk had a multi-generational commitment to extreme far right extremist politics, and that was still okay for us to accept him, and that our accepting this refugee from a rancid, one of the most rancid and disgusting political governments in the world over the last 100 years, has partnered now with another sort of child of a government that was overthrown by the West. And it's why this attack on AID is so important and why I've been writing about it so much. Because for most of the people of the world, the way that they interact with the United States is through USAID and the State Department and our aid programs. And it's about AIDs in about 100 countries. And we've now burned those countries badly by the way we've done this. And I really do believe, I want to say this as clear as I possibly can, that I believe that Elon Musk is trying to destroy the United States of America or the America of the Four Freedoms. In a week, he vaporized an entire independent agency called USAID, a $40 billion annual agency with offices all over the world. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And it's going to take a decade to rebuild what he just destroyed in a week. And we have to be concerned about his destructive power. This was extraordinary what he just did. And the thing is, he's going to keep going. He's just going to move from department to department to agency, and they're going to start evaporating. He tested it out here. He got away with it. And the guy is a serial criminal, and is betraying the United States and is, I think, seeking retribution for the America of the Four Freedoms in that we dislodged the regime that his family was so connected to down in South Africa. And this is retribution in the way that Putin has been seeking retribution against the West in the US for dissolving the Soviet Union in 1989. And that's why this is, the stakes here are so high. We are fighting every day now at Hopium and our movement to preserve the America of the Four Freedoms, rules-based international order, based on freedom and not dominion, the American democracy and rule of law here in the United States. And that's what they're attacking, and that's why we have to keep defending. And it's, I think we've been slow out of the box, but I think we've had many, many victories. And if we don't actually celebrate the wins when they come, it's easy to live in a world defined by them. We have to, as I talk about here all the time, we have to take the wins when they come, celebrate them, build on them day by day, each and every day. Hopium. Um, you know, we've stabilized financially. We lost people after the election. It's not a big surprise, right? This is an experimental thing. I didn't even know I was going to do it after the election, depending on what happened in the election. We're here now together. And I'm here because of all of you. I mean, I'm here because I, in terms of what I could be doing in my highest and best use, I came to realize that this community that we built together was important and meaningful, and it got a lot of really important shit done over the last couple of years, right? We built something together here that really matters. And I want to go into this battle against these guys with all of you. You're my peeps, right? Like we're in this together. And I think that I'm where I can be most effective is in working in partnership with all of you to go do what we have to go do together. And so I'm here. And the good news is we've grown a lot in the last few weeks. We've brought in paid subscribers, maybe new people here tonight, lots of new free subscribers, lots of new followers, as it's called on Substack, which is a lesser relationship. We're up to almost 200,000 total followers and subscribers at Hopium. You should know that we're one of the 35 or 40 largest Substacks in the entire world now, this community at Hopium, what we built together. And because I now feel like I understand enough about the financial, the money coming in, I've hired my first full-time staffer, really, in the history of Hopium. Hopium's almost 2 years old. Lincoln Cooper, who's a young guy who worked in the campaign in Arizona from April on. You'll be getting to see him and see his emails and things. He's going to be part of this to help, me manage events like this, to create more content for the website, for Hopium itself, and to hopefully help me also do far more public speaking, and more both in-person events, which I haven't really done much of since we began here. I will say that I do have an in-person event for those of you in the DC area. I'm going to be in Montgomery County on February 18th, locally here in Maryland. Heather Cox Richardson and I are going to be doing a Zoom-based event together in early March. I hope to be able to start traveling to the big cities to sort of meet all of you in person for the first time. It's always incredibly rewarding when I get to do that. So Hopium's here. We're growing. We're going to professionalize it. I'm going to get better lighting in here and other stuff. And we're going to go, and we're going to fight. We're going to do, I have no idea. No American has ever been through what we're going through. There's never been a moment like this in American history. But we just have to get up every day and do our best, and to not lose heart and lose faith, to not crawl up into a ball. I was struggling this morning. I'm going to be honest. I even mentioned that in the post. I just couldn't really do my normal post today. And we're going to have good days and bad days, but we got to stay with it. We got to stay together, and we've got to we've got to be operating out of love of country, love of one another, and this sort of unbelievable determination. Because Rob Shapiro, my friend, we talked today, the economist who I spoke with a couple of weeks ago, said something that was interesting to me today. He said, the difference between Germany in the 1930s or South Africa or, other places is that they don't have over 200, or Hungary is that recently is they don't have over 200 years of history of democracy, almost 250 years. This has been a resilient country. We've been around a long time. We've suffered through a lot of shit in our history. This is the big one. I mean, this may be the biggest one of all. But the American people are not fascists. They're not illiberal in they may have been bamboozled into supporting Donald Trump, but I don't think a majority of the United States wants our democracy to end and the rules-based order to end. They don't want tariffs to come, drive their goods up. They don't want America seizing foreign land in other places and blowing up the entire global system. I mean, I think Trump's way beyond his mandate here. And so we have to just keep our head down, keep working really hard, and take the wins when they come and just continue to try to weaken him and his project every day. What I wrote today finally was that I think in the short term, we have to stop Elon Musk. The damage that he is doing to the United States and to our government and to our standing in the world is just unreal. And he is a lot easier to deal with than the president, right? He's a private citizen. He isn't the duly elected president of the United States. He isn't the president, Elon Musk. He's Elon Musk. He's a private citizen. And what he's doing is he's on the greatest anti-democracy crime spree in our history. He's committing crimes, dozens of crimes every day. And in a normal world, right, if we had had an independent Justice Department, he would have been arrested and prosecuted, and he would be in jail the rest of his life by now. That's not going to happen because of the corruption of the judiciary by MAGA and Trump, the Supreme Court, and everything else. Elon has already been told by Trump that whatever he does, he'll get a pardon. None of that matters. We have to be inventive and creative in trying to block him and stop what he's doing. It is the thing that we have to focus on, in my view, the most. I have made a big argument that Congress needs to make criminal referrals to DOJ. I know they won't be acted upon, but it's important that for the people who admire Elon, who respect him, which is a diminishing number, by the way, his numbers are totally in the crapper, is that we start associating him not with entrepreneurship and wealth, but of criminality and betrayal of the country. That has to become as much a part of his brand as the other parts of his brand. That's within our power to do. And that's part of what I think we need to do together. Love you guys. Keep fighting. That was my ramble tonight. It was longer than I expected. And let me get to, I don't know why, my camera, I've got work to do to fix this thing. I don't know why it just jumped out on me, but there's Tug, right? You can see Tug. Where is it? Over there. And let me, yeah, pick our battles. Somebody has said I pick our battles. Let me get to what I'm going to do. So people keep asking about time and money, where to invest. I've made my recommendations, right? I've made a series of recommendations. Are there plenty of other places you can give time and money? Yeah, but I'm not going to recommend them yet to you. And I also am very conservative about my recommendations to all of you. I mean, for those of you who were around last cycle, we had an incredible track record. We did really well. We won a lot of even though we didn't win the big one, we were very successful in Nebraska and North Carolina and in Arizona and the places that we really, we won. We were deeply involved in 7 of the House flips and the House races. I am conservative. I only make recommendations to you in places where I think we can win and make a difference and where our money and time will matter, right? I will say I get asked a lot about the 3 House races. And what I want to say about the 3 specials is that we are very unlikely to win any of them. And this isn't like Iowa. The people who are claiming that these House races, look, we just did so well in Iowa, we can do so well in the House races. These are apples and oranges. The Republicans didn't spend any money in Iowa. They're going to spend whatever it takes to keep these House seats. And so these were long shots to begin with. But Elon will write $100 million check for these 3 races. And so, I don't, I'm open-minded about the 3 specials. It is right now, I haven't felt like that I can make those recommendations to you and feel that it's a good place to put your time and money right now. That may change, right? Our set of recommendations that we made in last cycle evolved and changed as circumstances changed. But everyone needs to realize is that if we poured $50 million into these races and lost, it would be a huge blow to us, right? And so I think that as hard as it's going to be, these kinds of decisions are hard and they don't feel organic and natural. These are very, very, very hard districts. These are not districts that we would normally compete in. And yes, we perform better in specials and low turnout specials, but our thing is not strong right now. We have to husband our resources. We have to be prudent about where we spend and where we engage. We have to seek victories, in small, medium, and large. And we can't be impulsive, right? And just, run into a live fire and get mowed down. And, think and so You want to be like Daryl in The Walking Dead, right? You want to be alive, 10 years in, 8 years in, right? And you don't want to, get mowed down. And people need to, um, I know this is a hard emotional time, right? This is brutal. We all want to be doing more. And we're not, the family and the thing isn't where we need it to be. And, and we have work to do, and I'm disappointed. I think one of my great disappointments of this early period is that I think we could have knocked out Kennedy and Gabbard and these guys. I don't think the Senate was really ready to go fight these and use all the tools at our disposal to go fight these. And I think we may end up having some losses among the unacceptable four that I think were potential wins. But rather than dwelling on that and beating ourselves up and talking about how Democrats suck, we have to learn from it and get stronger, right? We have to be learning machines, and we have to learn and learn and learn and learn these new circumstances, right? And we have to keep building and getting better and stronger every day. I'm doing it myself. I've joined a gym, I've got a trainer. I'm literally like making myself stronger and healthier in order to go into battle here, and to make sure that I'm working at my highest and best capacity. We have to resist this impulse to talk about Democrats sucking and being weak. It is a drain. It's depressing. It's demobilizing. It's self-indulgent. I know that's how we all feel, but keep it to yourself. And when you go out into the public sphere, right, be a good coach. Be encouraging. Don't be the coach that trashes their players, right? Be the coach that encourages your players to do better, to recognize, to learn from the losses and the mistakes that are made, and to keep getting better and stronger. That's how we have to be. And I know that at this moment, it doesn't feel that way. But, you have to decide, do you want to win or do you want to whine? Right. And I think we want to choose winning here. Um, let me go on uh, with questions, and let me try to get a sense. I want to say one other thing here, about there are two things that have come up here already that I want to just comment on. One is that I think shutting down the Senate is a really bad idea, because I don't think we respond to an attack on our democracy by purposely shutting down a legislative chamber. We need to use the Senate to have debates, to engage, right, to air these things out. We can slow things down. We can create procedural hurdles. We can do all those things. But the framing that is common out in the internet right now about shutting down the Senate, I think is dangerous and reckless. And I hope that people don't amplify and echo that. I think we have to be responsible stewards of our democracy. And yes, we have to play hard and fight like hell. But associating ourselves with turning off one of the main legislative chambers in the United States is exactly what they want to do. We don't want to do that, right? And so, we have to be careful here, and language matters, right? This stuff matters. The second thing, and so I don't know. I think obviously the Democrats in the Senate are moving towards a place of greater confrontation, and I am going to trust that in their understanding of the unbelievably arcane rules that exist in the Senate. Despite me being in this city for 32 years, I'm incredibly deferential to the senators for them to understand how to do what they have to go do better than I do, because the rules of the Senate are arcane. And they also know things that have been tried before that have failed, right? Like they've watched both our party and their party try some of these maneuvers that are going to come, and they know which ones have worked and which ones haven't. And so I think that we are in a different place now. I think the Senate and House Democrats are engaged now. They understand the mission. Hakeem Jeffries released a 10-part plan of the ways that he's going to counter Trump. Would it have been better for all of this stuff to happen a month ago? Of course. But we have to move on, and we have to learn from the early mistakes that we've made and continue to get better and stronger in all of this. Um, Look, I know there is a constant refrain about Ken Martin shouldn't be asking for money. the DNC, I just want to tell you all, I just disagree with that. And I know that this is may speak contrary to some of what I've been communicating about partners and fighting the donors to the cause. Do we want to have a strong DNC right now, or do we want to have a weak DNC? Right? I mean, are people really advocating that people shouldn't be giving money to the DNC right now in a time of national crisis? I mean, I know that there's this emotional thing that I need to see a plan first before I give. That's fine. You don't have to give. But the notion that Ken Martin shouldn't be trying to do everything he can to build the strongest DNC possible is fucking crazy. And people need to, there is no money at the DNC. He doesn't have any money, right? There's no money there. There's very limited capacity. You guys want him to come out roaring and kicking ass. It's going to take him months to build a team and to get that place into a place where it is really because again, we can't rush into battle. We cannot take on fights that we cannot win, right? That place is not in a place where it's operating at the level of capacity that we need. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to bitch and moan that Ken Martin is asking you for money to help him make a stronger DNC, or you're going to help him, right? Or you're not going to bitch him out, right? We look, our community, we started raising money on Saturday night for him. We've raised over $80,000 for the DNC. The DNC reached out to me. They couldn't believe how much money we were raising. They were unbelievably grateful. I'm not, I'm, we're doing here. You want a strong DNC? Then support them. Give them space. Give them time. Let Ken go build his team and go build this thing up. There was not an A team sitting there for him to take over, right? Ken knows how to run a party. He's been an incredibly successful party chair in Minnesota over a long period of time. His success is what gave Governor Walz the legislative session that got Governor Walz on the ticket. Governor Walz would not have gotten on the ticket without Ken Martin. And Ken Martin has been one of the most successful party chairs in the country. And the other thing I just want to say is that Ken Martin does not need to be a powerful spokesperson for all of us. We have 40 or 50 powerful spokespeople. We've got Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro and Maxwell Frost and AOC. His job is to be the conductor of the orchestra, his to run the party. He doesn't need to be a powerful communicator to be successful in this job. He's got to go out and raise the money. We got to go win in Wisconsin in April. He's got to build a party that can operate in the information space in this time of crisis. And we should be supportive of what he's trying to do. This guy has got a really hard job. This was a really tough election. They all of a sudden have a lot of money, right? Which we used to always have more money than them. I don't know if that's going to be the case anymore. And so we should be doing everything we can to support Ken, in my view, and not denigrate him in the coming months. You may choose not to be involved, right? That's your call. There's a lot of other places to be involved, but don't bemoan Ken's clear responsibility to go build the best DNC that he can, in my view. Let me go look at other questions. I think I've covered. Yeah, Alex, my old friend from Norwalk, Connecticut, said, I was very glad to see the big, vigorous Dem crowd at Treasury yesterday, but their message was so muddled with shouting and screaming that I can't imagine any stay-at-home Dems being changed by that demonstration. Again, yeah, like Alex, like this is all brand new, like we're in a startup and nobody's been here before. And you cannot, do not poison the well by having unreasonable expectations, everyone. This is really like an important part. Do you want to be the coach that praises players and lifts them up, or do you want to be the one that tells people they suck? Right. And I think that, you know, this is we were not ready for this, right? We weren't ready. And it's going to take a while, and we don't have a lot of time, right? I mean, there's cross pressures on all of this, right? We need to block Elon now. One of the reasons I'm trying to narrow down our area of focus is that we don't have tremendous capacity. We don't exactly know what we're doing. We have been winning in the courts, and that's really important. I mean, we've had some really consequential victories in the courts, blocking Trump cutting off the funding to the states and localities, blocking the birthright citizenship, right? Um, and Trump backed away and caved on the tariffs because of the danger that they represented. we've had wins, folks. And the thing is, if your attitude about the wins is that it's not enough, then they're not wins, right? And so we have to learn how to celebrate wins. This is the key to getting through all this. One day at a time, whatever your life mantra is, that when things are tough, you plow through. You have to, anyone who's been through difficult circumstances, health crisis, family crisis, you know that you have to take the wins when they come and celebrate them as you look to rebuild things that have collapsed, right? Or that have become hard. And so we have to have, we can't, I think one of my greatest, as I said earlier, this line that I've come up with, which is that we have to resist being perpetually disappointed. I think in some ways this concept of perpetual disappointment is the single most corrosive internal thing that happens inside the Democratic Party. And it's something that we have to shed now. It's, to me, it's now in a time of crisis, is self-indulgent, and it's corrosive, it's damage, it's internally damaging, it's demobilizing. It's, rather than being mobilizing, it's demobilizing for people, right? And that's why people want to go with a winner. They want to feel that there's progress being made. I'm going to continue to try to do my best every day to not be Pollyannish, but to show places that we're winning and making progress, and to pointing out that even though his bluster and blather, this guy is making a lot of mistakes, and there is overreach happening right now, in my view, and that you're already starting to see his numbers come down in job approval, which, by the way, we spent the last 2.5 years of American politics, really almost 3 years of American politics, being lectured to by all the political analysts about the centrality of job approval for determining the success of a presidency. Well, if Donald Trump's in the low 40s, which is where Biden was, right, throughout most of this period, there cannot be a double standard on the implications of his now declining, his already historically low and now declining job approval, because we've just been lectured by everybody over the last 2.5, 3 years about how central job approval is to understanding the health of the presidency, right? Um, we have to have that same expectation, right? Let me just keep looking at the questions. Um, yeah, let me look and see any more. Yeah, people ask about calling. Yes, you should call every day. You should call every day. And let me explain why, and I should have done this earlier. There's two things that these offices track every day. They track the calls that are made and then the calls that aren't made, right? They track presence, meaning people made a lot of calls today. And they also know when calls aren't made about things, when things are silent. And what happens when these offices don't have calls, where there's a sense that calls have slowed down, that informs their understanding about what's happening back home. And so absence of calls is as great a threat to us as the lack of having enough calls every day. And so, yeah, I would call every day. I would also say you can call the district offices, you can call the state offices, you can call the federal offices. Try to get through. The switchboards have been screwed up. Try to get the direct number so you're not going through the switchboard of wherever you're calling from. And start calling city council and mayors and state senators and state reps. Experiment with that. Go beyond the federal, right? Having the same conversation that you expect them to challenge Elon Musk, Trump and Musk, because they're going to they're attempting to cut vital services that will change our communities. And whatever, and I also want to say that you do not have to have a long script. This notion that you have to have sort of a big script, what they write down in the book is, okay, she called to say no on Hegseth and Kennedy, right? All the language and the intent, you have to have passion, right? You have to bring passion so they feel like this stuff is important to you. But in some ways, trying to stay on the call for a long time is almost counterproductive, because it means they're not talking to other people. It's about the number of calls they get. They keep a scorecard, right? Like literally, it's like 80 yes, 40 no, right? And yesterday it was 85, 25, and they track. And so it's important that yes, you speak to somebody, you convey your passion and say, listen, I just want to say that I'm calling to to insist that Representative so and so fight the unacceptable for that or you have a clear ask, right? I'm calling today because I want you to sign on to a criminal referral for Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a serial criminal. He's on a crime spree. I would like you to sign on to an effort and to lead an effort to refer the Department of Justice and to have there be an on the record from the United States Congress documentation of the crimes that he's committing. Even though we may not be able to prosecute him now, we have to set an understanding with the public that Elon is on an unprecedented crime spree. Have narrow, tight asks. Some of these groups are giving you long scripts. I think it's a total waste of time. Having been around this for a long time, they'll listen to you, what happens is my middle son was at the front desk of a congressional office fall a year ago, spent hours every day taking calls. As soon as people start going into diatribes, right, they just stop listening or extended engagements, right? And so if you get off quick, then they can take more calls and then we drive the numbers up. And so don't feel like, what you're doing is you're showing up every day. So yes, call your senator and have an ask every day. It can be the same ask 5 days in a row. It can be a different ask that I want you to fight the tariffs, right? But show up, weigh in, be present. This stuff really matters in Washington. They really pay attention to this, and they only pay attention to their constituents. They don't care about people who call from other places. We've learned this because those AstroTurf campaigns are unsuccessful. Let me go to other questions. Let me just look here. I think I've covered. I mean, Deborah just asked a question that I want to. What wins have we had? What am I missing? I want to just comment on that because you don't know that something happened doesn't mean it didn't happen. And what people have to be very, very careful about, and I've seen this a lot at Hopium, is, it's been very hard to pay attention to the news. It's been very hard to listen to things. And I think many people are spending less time engaged in the news than they were before. So it means that you're missing things and that you're not as educated as you would have been normally in what's happening. So then don't be surprised if you don't know about things that are happening, if you're not paying attention, right? I mean, be gentle on yourself in the sense that it is not my responsibility to tonight go through and recover what I've been writing every day for the last 10 days about the wins that we've had, the things that have been successful, the mistakes that Trump has been making. If you're not reading Hopium every day, if you don't go before this event tonight and go brush up on things I've written, don't come and then bring your lack of engagement and your ignorance into the conversation. I mean, I'm trying to say this in a way that is constructive, right? Because what people is, and I've seen this on the Hopium chat, is that acknowledge your disengagement, own it, right? That you don't actually know what's going on because it's too fucking scary. But then don't be surprised if things are talked about in meetings like this that you're not aware of, and come up with comments like, "What wins have we had?" Kind of in this obnoxious way, like, "What are you talking about, Simon?" We've had a lot of wins. I mean, the courts have blocked birthright citizenship. The courts have blocked his cutting off of money to the states, right? The courts have we've seen filings now. We've seen a huge increase in the number of filings by state attorney generals, by governors, by local officials, right? Challenging various parts of the agenda. We've had actual in-person rallies where Democrats have gotten up and spoken intelligently and passionately using language that everyone here. I shared one of those videos of the very first kind of major event that happened outside of USAID, right? We elected a new chair who won on the first ballot and had a decisive and definitive victory, and it wasn't drawn out and divisive and tore the party apart. I know many people are disappointed that Ben Wickler didn't win. That's one of the reasons why the money that we're giving in Wisconsin, we're giving it to Ben. I'm not giving it to Susan Crawford. We're giving it to the Wisconsin Democratic Party. If you want to send Ben a little bit of love, right, give to Through Hopium. And by giving Through Hopium, you're sending Ben money to wish him well and to thank him for his incredible leadership. Because remember, the very first Hopium event we ever did in March of 2023 is with Ben Wickler, right? Ben's a buddy of ours. I stayed neutral in the race because all three of the candidates were people that I knew well and that I thought would do a good job. And I didn't think it was appropriate for me to endorse in this race. I'm very proud that Jane Klebb, who some of you have gotten to know through Hopium, we were a major investor. I should have said this in the very beginning because it's now at the end. And I'll close with this, is that there are there are a handful of people that really understand the power of this community and what we did last cycle. Anderson Clayton, Jane Klebb, right? Our Ken Martin, frankly, Ben Wickler. But Jane Klebb probably is more of an advocate and cheerleader for this community than virtually anyone in the country. Because we not only gave more money to Nebraska than anyone else, we gave more to Nebraska than anyone has ever given the blue dot last cycle. And they had incredible down ballot wins, even though we didn't win that congressional seat. And Jane is now the chair that is the president of the state chairs, the organization of all the state party chairs, and is a vice chair of the DNC. And there is no one, if you watch the video interview we did, there's probably no one who understands the power of this community and what we're capable of than Jane Club. And she's now at the right hand of Ken Martin. She's in the inner sanctum. She's a rural organizer. She lives on a ranch in Nebraska. She's an incredible party leader. Ken Martin was also a very successful party leader. We got David Hogg, who's a favorite of our community. He got into, David did this great interview with him. And I can say now that I helped David I didn't endorse him, but I helped him during his race. And he's very grateful for the help that we gave him during the race. So we came out of this chairs race in good shape. I'm close to Ken and been close to Ken forever. I've done a lot of work with the ASDC for 30 years, right? It's been one of my sort of homes in Washington. Jane is there now, and Jane understands deeply the power of hopium. David was so impressed with everything we did. So I feel like this new team that's in place, we can work with and help them build a powerful DNC that we need now, a powerful national party, not a party of 7 battleground states, but of the whole country, right? So let me end with this because it's time. This is an incredibly hard time, and all of you need to stay safe and to take care of yourself. I'm doing it you know, I am working out much more. I've joined a gym. It's giving me, I feel better, right? I feel much better. I feel healthier. I'm getting healthier. Then I let myself go a little bit in the last few months during of the election and didn't exercise. As those of us who are formerly young, right? It's critical to exercise every day, not just a few days a week. You've got to do something. You've got to move, walk, whatever it is, every day. And I love my trainer, and I feel like this is a great way of self-care for me in a time that's hard. I just want to say to all of you, right? This has been harder than I expected it to be, as hard as I thought it was going to be. I think just living this every day here in Washington, just to conclude with this, the gutting of the civil service is so much more extensive than is publicly understood. The number of people that we know who've lost their jobs or are suspended, or the department or agency they work for doesn't exist anymore, and they're in limbo, it's incredible. This whole city, the economic ecosystem of this city is under assault by these guys, and we are losing extraordinary amount of talent and capacity and experience. Like what happened with aviation security, we're not making the government smaller, we're making the government shitty. And we're making it less capable of serving the American people, cutting off contractors in 100 countries and having food aid be stuck in warehouses and rotting and on container ships instead of feeding people. The recklessness, the carelessness, the sort of racial anger that exists in Trump and Musk and all of this, and the sort of the utter the scene, the sight of the wealthiest man in the world making his first big project, cutting off aid for the poorest people in the world. The injury that is just it's unreal. I mean, our sense of moral grounding and has been shaken by what we've seen. Um, and I will admit to you, it's been hard. I had a morning this morning where I was like, it got to me. All this got to me in the last day in a way that it hadn't. But I shook it off. I'm here with you, right? We're here together. We're in community. We need to be in community and to be with others, right? That's why these protests and things are also important. We need to be physically with others, right? It's why I want to get out and do more events in the public, because I think being together now physically is more important than it was over the last couple of years to be in community and solidarity together. And so I just want to say I love you guys. This has been an incredible experience. Hopium's going to be 2 years old in about a month. It's hard to believe. And we've done a lot of good together. And I'm really proud of what we've built together. But you know what I'm going to say next, which is our most important work is in front of us, not behind us. And, defeat is not an option. We have to win. We have to win for our families, for our future, our freedoms, our democracy, for the kids all around the world, our kids and all the kids of the world. Because if America falls, freedom falls everywhere. And so the stakes here are unbelievably high. And, I'm here with all of you. I'm going to be fighting as I've been fighting every day. And we got to take the wins when we come, celebrate them, build on them. And we got to go kick this big blubbery baby ass guy. What's my line? The big blubbery baby man's ass, and go win this thing for the country. And it's going to be hard. And what I think my final point to you is you need to see this as a 2 to 4 year struggle, and you have to pace yourself. It's why you can't run into battle. We need you on the playing field for 2 years and 4 years every day. And you have to organize yourself so that you make sure you stay on the playing field, even at reduced capacity for months. You may disengage for a few months. It's okay. We can't have you disengage altogether, right? We need to stay in the game. However you can stay safe and stay healthy and stay in the game, you got to do it, because we're going to be fighting this for a while. And it's why I'm going slow and being prudent, strategic, taking my time. The old line, right? Carpenters, they measure twice and cut once. We're going to measure here twice and cut once here as we go forward. Love you guys. Keep fighting. Stay strong.